He revised the book in 1918. And when it went into a second edition, and many more printings were made. And the interesting thing is that there were significant changes made in the book by 1918. And the significant changes, though, always come under a particular heading. You will find, Rudolf Steiner will say, a thinker who the author values very highly has said this. Well, in most cases, that's Eduard von Hartmann, who Rudolf Steiner actually devoted his PhD thesis to, called Truth in Science. And Eduard von Hartmann, Rudolf Steiner went to meet Eduard von Hartmann. He called Eduard von Hartmann the cleverest man of the 19th century. And he hoped that he could actually develop a warm philosophical relationship with this man, even though this man was a pessimist and was very much swept up in the world of Kant. Rudolf Steiner had a kind of, he loved Eduard von Hartmann, and he hoped that he could actually have philosophical discourse with him. But he found, when he finally was granted an audience with Eduard von Hartmann, that von Hartmann had been apparently injured in a war accident. His leg was in incredible pain. And he could see by the furrowed brow and the painful expression on his face that the pessimism was deep-seated, and it came from the excruciating pain that von Hartmann suffered every day. So Rudolf Steiner had compassion on him, tried to win him over to certain ideas, but von Hartmann certainly was not willing to go very far. But nonetheless, von Hartmann made very specific criticisms. Rudolf Steiner sent him an early edition in 1893, and said, "I would love your feedback on this book." And Eduard von Hartmann apparently took a red pen and scratched through every page and put big remarks on it, and big disagreements, to say the least. Sometimes polite, sometimes not polite, usually not polite. And he mailed the book to Rudolf Steiner and said, "This is what I think of your book, and I want this copy back." So Rudolf Steiner had to take another fresh version and copy every single comment. Well, do you know that Rudolf Steiner really took these comments very seriously? And so it's not that Eduard von Hartmann necessarily improved the book, but he certainly did improve it in the sense that Rudolf Steiner saw where he had not expressed himself clearly. And it's not that he changed the fundamental direction of the book at all, but he appreciated von Hartmann's criticisms, and in certain cases he was able to shore up or clarify an argument that might have been an easy defeat. So, and if anything, Rudolf Steiner was shored up by von Hartmann's criticism. So sometimes you could say poor Eduard von Hartmann was the co-author of the book in a certain sense, even though he hated the book. He completely disagreed with the book. Now, Rudolf Steiner writes another preface for the new printing, the new version, which is released in 1918. This appears on page 1 of this translation. And friends, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let's go cut to the chase on this particular preface. Yeah, the 1918 preface. He says there are two questions that this book is addressing. The first question is, I'll read it. I'll just read the statement, and then we have to translate it because we have to confront an idea and experience it, or else we'll fall into its bondage. So the first question is, can we understand human nature in such a way that this understanding serves as the basis for everything else we may meet in the way of experience or science? For we have the sense that what we meet in this way cannot sustain itself because doubt and critical thinking can drive it into the realm of uncertainty. That's the first question. Now we need to translate that into English, into something that we can comprehend. What is the first question really? What's the essence of this question?
What page are you on?
I'm on page 1.
Page 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Page 1, yeah.
Thank you.
So this is the preface to the revised edition of 1918. So can we understand human nature in such a way that an understanding of human nature serves as a basis for everything else we may meet? But that everything else is connected with certainty, isn't it? He's asking the question of certainty. Yeah. Because he's saying, unless we know ourselves, we won't really be able to say. Doubt will always tear down anything that we build up artificially. Can we know ourselves adequately that we can gain certainty. So can we translate that question, at least try to translate part of that question? Is the first question really then has to do with the question of can, and it's not can one gain certainty of the world. It doesn't matter to me if somebody can gain certainty of the world. The question is, can I gain certainty? Can you gain certainty? Yeah. This is a question. Friends, I have to say to you as well, sometimes the English translations are, because they're trying to be gender fair, usually Rudolf, Steiner, and philosophers write with he, or you know, so he, but sometimes in the translations into English, instead of saying he should do this or he wants to do this, it will become generalized and it stops being so individual, it starts being more objective. The question really through the whole book is not about can one discover freedom. The question is can the reader, yes, can the individual find freedom? It's not a question, is it possible for somebody to be free? So the question is, can I gain individual certainty? That's the first question. I'm mostly concerned about if I can do it, yeah? Because we're living the age of individuality. So can I gain individual certainty? Can I know myself well enough in how I operate that I can say I'm certain that this is true and this is subject to question, subject to doubt? Yeah. Now, but the second question is easier to translate. The second question, can we human beings as willing entities ascribe freedom to ourselves? Or is this freedom a mere illusion that arises because we do not see the threads of necessity upon which our willing, like any other natural event, depends? So, in other words, is freedom. So the first question is about individual certainty. The second question is the question of individual freedom. Yeah? Is it possible for an individual to be free? Yeah? So these are the two questions. So is individual freedom possible, and can an individual gain certainty about his or her relationship to the world? More directly, can I gain certainty and can I become free? I know that there are a lot of things that I have to do. I have to breathe, I have to drink, I have to eat, I have to sleep. We have a lot of needs coming from the world of nature. Nature, as beautiful as she is, she also imposes certain restrictions upon us. We have to sleep. We can't just stay up forever. Yes, we have to sleep, we have to breathe, we have to eat, we have to drink. So nature imposes certain restrictions on us. Necessities. Nature does impose certain necessities on us. If we're going to live in a body that's going to remain intact, we have to abide by the laws of the body. So there are certain laws that come from nature that we have to abide by. But of course the other question is there may be laws coming from this divine world that are also impinging upon us, also in a certain sense giving us direction about what we should or shouldn't do. Certain moral laws, commandments from authority. Yeah. So we're really in a certain sense, are we subject to the necessity of the commandments of the divine spiritual world? And certainly we are responsible to and have to respond appropriately to the laws of nature. So there's certain necessities coming at us from two directions. And even if we try to ignore one, we're still, even if we say there isn't a divine world, I'm just a natural being, we still have to live according to the laws of nature. So freedom, so freedom is, so the question is individual freedom versus necessity. Yeah? Necessity. That's the way he's posing it. Do I just necessarily have to, am I merely a product of my needs coming from one or both directions? Or is it possible for me to be free? So he goes on to say, in a certain sense, he's trying to find a view of the world where both of these questions can be answered. Yeah? But he says really the first half of the book will have to deal with the question of certainty, because we won't, until we say we know how to gain truth or not truth, we know what is true or not true, then we can turn the question to the second is it possible for me to become free? Is it possible for an individual to act out of freedom? So now, that's really the essence of the 1918 preface, the second preface of 1918.